Hey guys, today's story is going to be about an edgy nerd in a Shadowrun game. But before we get into that, I have for you all a haiku. A GM faceplants after a terrible pun onto a D4. So, a friend recently reminded me of possibly the cringiest session of Shadowrun that I've ever played. My local game store had this really nice gaming lounge with snacks, air conditioning, leather chairs, and no BO during the week when the regulars weren't there. And some friends and I would play Shadowrun there since, at the time, none of us had a place big enough for all of us to sit around and play. And while playing, people would notice our game and ask to join. And I was always happy to help new people get into Shadowrun. However, one of those times we recruited a standard scrawny nerd, the kind that I saw all over my campus. And he wasn't an obvious neckbeard or incel, so he didn't set off any alarms immediately. The game I was running was a campaign based around a friend of the party getting captured, and the party members working to rescue him from a hidden corporate black site. Now, for a while, we had been recruiting new people, and my reputation as a fairly lethal black trenchcoat-style GM was pretty well cemented, even back then. So, this game had something of a body count by now. And I should mention Ippin, who is a Japanese dwarf who had defected from MCT years ago, and due to her lingering brainwashing, she felt guilty and sick at times over the guy getting grabbed by the MCT, even though she left the corporation years ago and had nothing to do with it. On top of that, they were Ippin's best friend, and she even had a crush on them in character since he was nice to her when she came into the shadows. Ippin was also the leader on the session that I ran with the new nerd, as the rest of her friends were either dead or hiding. But now on to the new nerd. He made a human street samurai with a Neo-Bushido code of honor and street kid background. Fairly normal for Shadowrun, and I'm not going to throw stones at someone sounding weeby in a cyberpunk game. However, as the session began, he described his character in a way that I think was meant to be cool, but reminded me of school shooter Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Combat boots, trench coat, Punisher shirt, cargo pants, fingerless gloves, the works. It was a little silly, but I'm not going to throw stones about being silly in Shadowrun. The game veers easily into clown shoes territory, even at the best of times. So, the job began, and Ippin was taking new nerd and another guy who didn't even show up to the session to a corporate bank. They didn't hold anything as worthless as money, but info banks. Companies keep hardwired servers of sensitive information in these vaults, so they can't be hacked, and are very unlikely to get stolen. The job was to steal one of those servers from an MCT vault. Ippin was a rigger and decker, so she waited inside of her van while the Columbine samurai went inside to case the joint. She gave him a few cameras, sensors, etc. that would allow him to record security systems and other stuff, as well as some data taps that he could plant so she could get better access into the bank's systems. Ideally, she would get in, open the vault, and the Columbine samurai would sneak past security to grab the server, and they leave. That, however, did not happen. The Columbine samurai went from room to room in the bank, which was a map of the First World Bank from Payday 2, and was rolling to perceive and scan all of the cameras, sensors, guards, and etc. It was risky since he was in there longer and not looking like a normal person. But he was trying to be smart, so I wasn't going to throw the book at him over it. At one point, however, He went up the stairs to a lounge area that was meant for employees. So he stopped, put his hands up, and didn't draw, since he was surrounded by rent-a-cops throughout the entire building.
Hey Yumi, what do you think you're doing here?
Whoa, hold on, officer. I'm not up to anything.
Rolls con and fails.
That's so, Yumi. You don't look like no employee at this here bank, you.
Okay, you got me, alright? I'm a Shadowrunner, but I'm not alone. Let me go, and I can get you to the person that really wants to rob this place.
Yes, he went full trout. Upon hearing this, the orc officer called this in, and 2 more cops helped him secure the Columbine samurai in the lounge. They didn't move him since they knew that he would probably start shooting, and they tried to work out a deal with him to wear a bug and go back to his boss. The samurai would go back, report success, and then the officers would get a confession and move in to arrest his boss. What he seemed to forget, however, was that Ippin already had a bunch of bugs on him, and saw and heard this whole scene go down, while getting increasingly distraught in the rigger van. The samurai came out of the bank, looking all smooth and composed, and he went back to the van's driver's seat, got in, and told Ippin that the security was too tight for him to plant the data taps, but they could come back later and try again. He also asked her why he needed to plant the taps in the first place, as a way of getting her to confess into the mic. Ippin, from the back of the van, reached over the driver's seat with a monofilament garrote, and began murdering the Columbine samurai, and thus began the first ever instance of PvP in one of my games, and Ippin's first time of getting her hands dirty. From there, the samurai began whining about rules, and trying to game Shadowrun's rules to get out of getting killed. He failed a surprise roll, couldn't out-edge her, argued that his higher initiative should have saved him, even though he was surprised, and then tried to argue about how he shouldn't need to roll, since he's a human with muscle enhancements, and a high body, and she's just a tiny dwarf. I told him that's not how any of that worked, and she has been winning every opposed roll. Finally, the samurai's head was sawed from his shoulders and fell onto his lap. Ippin tossed his body and head out into the street, and kept speeding away from the bank. The new nerd immediately got angry, accused her of metagaming since she couldn't have possibly known what he was saying to the cops, and I had to remind him that Ippin had put a bunch of cameras and sensors on him when he was casing the bank. He then tried to say that he would have turned them off when he got held up by the cops, and I told him that he should have said so if that's what he was doing. Finally, he accused her of cheating with the dice rolls since she wouldn't let anyone else touch her dice. My dice, actually, which are the cool Shadowrun dice that I don't want stolen. Which, at that point, I just told him to go if he was going to get argumentative over it. In response, he splashed me with his soda and stormed out of the store with his things. I never saw him there again, and the manager gave me a free Pepsi for getting assaulted in his store. So, every cloud has a silver lining, I suppose. Well guys, I'm not quite sure what I could say to add to this beyond what the heck was this guy thinking was going to happen, and what was he trying to really accomplish? Was he just an edgy, aspiring main character? Let me know what you guys think, and as always, have a good one.